So we are up and running.
Yeah, I'm good.
Right.
I'm excited.
So it occurred to me that we should probably, old man noises all around. We should probably try and introduce ourselves at the start of these, not assume everybody knows who we are. So welcome to the Professional Nerds Podcast, where silly shit is serious business. I'm Ryan. I am a professional nerd. I get paid for it even. And who the hell are you people?
I'm Van. I'm a professional nerd, but in a different sense. I do data and look at numbers.
Yeah.
And I bring the normal person, with air quotes.
Yeah, that's
things.
That is both incredibly inaccurate and incredibly true. That is the proper frame of reference. Of the three of us, you are definitely the normal one.
The everyman, if you will.
That was... go ahead.
That's so funny. I'm Gabe. I'm a lifelong nerd, although professionally I'm not one anymore.
You're a dance nerd.
Yeah.
That's true.
Arts are nerdy.
No,
you can be an artist nerd.
Professional nerd in yet another sense.
Yeah.
I'm hyperfixate on things.
Gee, I don't know what that's like. It's not like I got a PhD in comic books or something. Autism superpowers for the win.
Yeah.
I love that. It's yes, I have a condition, but it does have advantages. What do you mean you can't write a book in 2 months and just not sleep?
Mm-hmm.
No,
you and Brandon Sanderson, dude.
Have I introduced you to Taskmaster?
The character?
No.
It's I know who Taskmaster is.
So it started as a British show with British comedians. And then
that one,
It is an amazing show.
I have seen that show, yeah.
We're not in any way affiliated with Taskmaster, although we would love to be.
Yeah.
Give us money, make us do stupid shit. We'll do it. We have no dignity.
There's a season where, I think it's New Zealand, where there is an autistic comedian that joins, and her autistic powers helps her really well with a few of the challenges. And kind of screws her over with a couple because she's like, I know what this means, and then didn't actually finish reading the prompt.
Yeah, that happens.
Ryan's never experienced that, not even once.
But I have not written entire 20-page papers and then realized I misread something. Not happened. Never.
But she figured out different puzzles faster than some of the other people because their pattern recognition and stuff.
Yeah, neurospiciness has its advantages. And its drawbacks, trust me. But, I'm not different, I'm min-maxed.
I am min-maxed. That's glorious.
I can live with that.
I'm a fan.
Well, on the subject of things being min-maxed and socially unacceptable... Segue to Lobo.
Yeah!
So, for those who don't know and are perhaps... I'm going to say younger than us. Lobo came around in the late 80s, well, early 90s really, as the premier anti-hero. The definition of anti-hero-ness. He fought Superman. I think that's mostly where we remember him from, the cartoons.
The 90s cartoon.
Mm-hmm. The 90s cartoon, the Justice League cartoon, where he was voiced by Brad Garrett, who is great. For those who don't know, that's the big brother from Everybody Loves Raymond. Very recognizable voice.
Oh my god, he was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that big guy who always talks he does the voice of Lobo. And several other cartoon voices from our childhood. He's one of those guys that was he's okay as an actor, but a great voice actor. Like Phil Lamar, who was on Mad TV and then did Samurai Jack and Martian Manhunter.
Samurai Jack was so good.
You recognize Phil Lamar's voice when he comes on, and it's always great. Anyway, Lobo. The anti-hero, the big bastich, the main man. So I am actually in about 2 months' time. I'm going to a conference in Albuquerque for academics like me, and I am doing a presentation on Lobo. So I wanted to do kind of a dry run of my presentation in a slightly more informal setting, just to get some practice and because I think it's neat. So,
also,
yes, I am. That's why you're here.
There's also a movie that at least has been teased that they've got
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa, thank you. I can imagine the man's nipples, but I couldn't think of it. As
I would make fun of
which
you,
is
but that's
the
entirely
perfect-
accurate.
Which
That's-
is the perfect fucking role for him.
Well, and apparently The Rock wanted to play Lobo like 10 years ago. And no, I love The Rock. Dwayne Johnson is great, but he is not. He's a little too clean cut for Lobo.
Yeah.
Jason
Jason Momoa
Momoa.
already has the look. They just need to put the makeup on him.
Yeah.
And he absolutely could pull the character
Yeah,
without a problem. Like we've seen like what was that Frontier? Is it called Frontier? The show that he was on where he was like a woodsman from Canada who would just like absolutely ruin people with a tomahawk.
I don't know. I don't know that reference, but I can easily imagine Jason Momoa doing
He
that.
did a
Sounds
Yellowstone-ish type show that takes place. It's like the northern trapping
Yeah.
thing. So he's like a beaver trapper or something who lived with the native tribe up there for a long time, and he ends up being kind of an interface between the native peoples and the Europeans. Really interesting show. I enjoyed it. But yeah, no, that character has a lot of Lobo in him.
Yeah, Jason Momoa could very easily do the like completely crazy, doesn't give a fuck, and is more macho than thou. Yeah, I could see Jason Momoa doing Lobo real easily. So that is coincidentally timely. It's like we planned it or something. We didn't, but it's almost like it.
Well, I think it's still
So, yeah.
a couple years out. I think
Yeah.
it's still in pre-production.
But that news did just come out, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, let's start off easy way. What do you guys know about Lobo?
There was a while there where I got him confused with Craven.
Ah,
So he's like a hunter though, but he's like galaxy wide.
He's
Yeah.
like a bounty hunter.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he is terrifyingly powerful. There's a clip I saw on, I don't know, TikTok like a week ago from one of the Justice League shows where he takes on like half of the Justice League and they're just like trying hard to shut him down and he's like, no, stop it. And he's just like just messing them up with a certain amount. Like the energy Lobo has when fighting half of the Justice League is annoyance.
Yeah,
And not like concern or fear or anger or vengeance, but annoyance of like, I'm trying to do a thing and you're trying to stop me. Stop it.
yeah. I remember one of the Justice League cartoons when they thought Superman was dead for a while. He'd like been transported into the future, and Lobo comes to take his place and like, you guys need me. And he gets in a fight with Calabac, Darkseid's son. So like a new god. Lobo picks up a car, beats him into the pavement, and then it cuts away and cuts back to like 20 minutes later, and he's still just piling cars on the guy. Like this is not just being thorough. So yeah, that is a good introduction to him. Ben, do you know anything much about him?
It was just the bounty hunter thing and stuff. I know he's reckless. He's kind of Neanderthalic, kind of in this character, at least is what I'm used to. Like lowbrow, I'm gonna go punch him because he's bad, kind of a deal.
Punch him because I want to.
Yeah, basically.
Toxic masculinity is
Yeah.
basically, he is toxic masculinity on legs.
Which I guess,
Which is hilarious because full face makeup.
yeah.
Well, no, not makeup. His skin is just white.
Yeah, but his skin looks like makeup.
Oh yeah, it does. And in fact, it looks like he has like a handlebar mustache. He doesn't. That's just markings on his like facial patterns.
That is not an actual like beard or mustache.
No, he has the beard stubble, but the mustache thing is just a face marking,
That's amazing.
and not like paint, like a biological. Just his skin is patterned that way.
I'm a little more offended now. So like,
I'm a little more offended now.
so the LARP that I attend regularly, in March, I might be the main bad guy, which is a character based off of Lobo. So somebody on the story team was like, you know who reminds me of Lobo? Van.
Yeah, that may or may not be a compliment.
Someone who knows you well.
Yeah, accurate, but
Yeah.
not nice. So I want to talk about Lobo for a couple things. One, he is a lot of fun. He's just awesome and hilarious. Two, there's a couple of academic things going on that I think are really neat. One is the concept of parody, which, obviously, he was meant to be a parody of like the hyper macho, hyper violent guys from the late 80s. So like Wolverine, the Punisher, He's making fun of them. That's why he's called Lobo, like Wolfman. But the thing about parody is, parody makes fun of stuff, but it also reinforces stuff. So at the same time as it's cutting it down, it's also reinforcing these ideas. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is something called carnival. Because my premise is that not only is Lobo stupid, hyper macho parody, it's high art. And in fact, it's higher art than most regular art. Because it does it does carnival in a way that apparently hasn't been done since the Middle Ages. So yeah, I think it's cool.
I don't think I understand what you mean by carnival.
All right, so let's get into that. So there's this guy called Mikhail Bakhtin. He was a Russian literary critic and theorist in the early 1900s. He looked at carnival traditions, and that is especially coming out of Europe. He theorized it as basically that one time a year when the rules don't count anymore and everything's topsy-turvy and you get to reverse the hierarchies. And it's a way for society to let off pressure. So it still exists. It was a festival season right before Lent. It's Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is the Louisiana Carnival. They do Carnival in Rio de Janeiro. If you go to Italy or most of Europe, they have Carnival right before Lent. So that's what he was talking about. What I always think of is, have you seen The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney movie?
Oh, yeah.
You know the first song, Topsy Turvy Day? Mm-hmm. That's Carnival. That's what it is. The king of fools, the ugliest man is the handsomest. The princes and the popes are all made fun of, and it's society's way of blowing off steam for the rest of the year. Bakhtin said that this was, what they did in the Middle Ages, and everybody was involved because it was all of society, and it wasn't just destructive. It wasn't just about tearing down. It was about building up. So there was a creative aspect as well, which Bakhtin argues has been gone since the Middle Ages. It's devolved into just satire and parody and just mockery. Now, to be clear, Bakhtin is wrong. He's like lots and lots of scholars have written lots and lots of things saying, no, you just because you are obsessed with, medieval Italian literature doesn't mean this doesn't happen anymore. One of my favorites is about Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Like, no, this is carnival. But most carnival is, most media today is passive. You don't have a creative aspect to it. Or, there's the creative person who makes it, but then you just consume it. So you consume the parody, you consume the mockery, but you don't get to create something new. My argument is that Lobo actually does that creation, which is pretty cool. So the entire thing is, the big issues of Carnival are big emphasis on taboo breaking, a lot of sex, a lot of bodily functions, eating, pooping, peeing, farting, all that stuff that's, not nice, polite society stuff. And a lot of weird combinations that shouldn't exist. Bakhtin talked about the pregnant hag, like a 90-year-old crone who's also pregnant somehow and laughing about it. So like this mixture of birth and death in the same thing, which is a really cool idea. So yeah, Lobo is definitely very much about the body. Everything is about, part of it is he's got Superman level strength, and he is literally can regenerate from a single drop of blood.
He's immortal. He's truly immortal.
He is truly immortal. He can be killed, but then
he comes back.
He comes back, and in fact, in the second Lobo miniseries, he goes to heaven and beats the shit out of everyone until they reincarnate him.
He is currently not allowed in heaven or hell because neither the gods nor the devils can control him.
Yeah, there's an official do not collect this guy,
which
death.
Just doubles down on his immortality. Because, at least the ones that I had heard, and I don't know, how exhaustive this is, because he's been around for a while, so with any DC character that's around for a while, there's the different versions and different origins and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's three main ones. there's the one that started in the late 80s that was the original. He was from some other race and was a hitman and wasn't really interesting. And then they took him
his
and then they
immortality
remade it.
from that was that he found out that he could only be killed by a member of his own race, so he personally genocided his own species to make himself immortal.
Not even quite that. He just in the earliest versions, he just genocided them for fun because he wanted to be unique, which is another parody aspect. Because the last surviving son, the sole survivor of Krypton, the Batman loses his parents. The hero's always got to be an orphan and unique. Lois said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna be an orphan and unique," and killed his entire planet.
Did not know that.
With they have an actual quote of it. It was like,
And you say he's an anti-hero, so when's the hero part come in?
It rarely, mostly by lack of options. Like he just kind of like Spike in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, oh, I can punch demons and that's allowed. All right, I'm gonna punch all the demons now. They constrain him to where he
Or
has
things
to
where
fight
he's
on their
like,
side.
I like Earth. I don't want it destroyed.
Also,
there's some really fun brothels here.
Yeah.
They make good drugs. So, we're not going to destroy them. You can kill some of them. Take out a city, that's fine. But we're not wiping out humanity, no.
Yeah. Here we go. What's 117 microns long, airborne, of scorpion-like appearance, and burrows into flesh, causing great black blisters and severe blood poisoning over a prolonged period before resulting in agonizing and messy death. The Zarnians didn't know either. But Lobo unleashed a plague of them.
Jeez.
And then actually they describe it as he's sitting, again, sexuality in the body and carnival. As he's sitting there watching his entire planet die, drinking a nice glass of wine on his balcony, it reminds him of that time in, high school when he met Susie behind the bleachers, except times a million. So, the best orgasm of his life is killing his entire planet.
Also, what does that say about what he did to Susie?
Yeah, I got the impression that it was just normal teenage stuff with Susie.
The fuck happened with Susie?
Susie? Just it was just some girl. It was like his first time, but better.
That's what I mean. If he's like, this, me massacring everyone, reminds me of my first time times a million, the math implies that he did to her, scaled down by a million, what he did to the planet.
Oh,
I see
Which
what
would
you're
imply
saying,
to
and
me
I don't
that
like
he
to think about
brutally
it.
murdered that girl and was like, yeah, that's the good stuff.
I think there's a satisfaction gradient is what I thought.
I think
Yeah,
I think
I
you guys
see
are reading
your-
it the way the author intended it. I'm bringing a horrible, accurate representation of what is implied by the way that was fucking stated.
Yeah. He murdered his entire planet because he wanted to be unique and had the best orgasm ever doing it. So again, lots of body, lots of sex, lots of violence.
So is it just
And he can replicate. He can clone himself from a single drop of blood.
Oh, fuck.
So on multiple occasions, there have been entire armies of Lobo. Just at various points, they managed to sci-fi castrate him, for lack of a better word. He just can't clone himself. So he could die if they kill the final one and they can convince heaven to take him.
And that was the thing of the whole heaven and hell thing, is that right now you can kill his body, but his spirit won't go anywhere.
It probably won't be able to hurt you, but it will hang around and annoy you.
And then it will come back.
And then find a way to come back and hurt you, yes. So that's Lobo. He's incredibly murderous. There are fights where he and another guy start blazing at each other, standard 80s style, and they just end up half their face shot off, literal bullets sticking out of them. Fuck, I'm out of ammo. You? Yeah, all right, we'll go to knives. And you're just okay, it's so over the top, it goes over the top and becomes disgusting and disturbing, and then goes even further and loops back around to just ridiculous. And nowhere is this seen more frequently than when he again brutalizes heaven. He fights his way through the angelic hordes, and they're at multiple occasions they tell him, "We're already dead. You can't kill us." And then he rips their head off, and son of a bitch, I can't kill him. He's still talking. And several of the angels point out, yeah, he can't kill us, but eternity without your head kind of loses its appeal, so maybe we'll just stand back. And then they reincarnate him in the body of a sexy, sexy lady. and he becomes Shibo. Let me see if I can find an image, because it is not just an attractive lady. She comes out fully grown somehow, being born or reincarnation.
Because the angels didn't want to put that kind of a spirit inside of a baby.
Yeah, well, then he threatened them to bring me back in a full-grown adult body, or else.
So with his best orgasm ever, did he? Was it like? What color was it, or was it just like a wet spot in his pants?
It was described in like an unauthorized biography. But yes, this is a picture of Shibo.
That's a muscle mommy.
Yeah, well, she's the sexy lady with like the pantyhose and the high heels and the underwear basically falling off, and then a giant fuck off Lobo arm. So again, I realize we're on the internet. I was about to say I defy you to be attracted to that, but somebody is. But most people are like, ooh, sexy lady. Oh god, what's that arm? And so it's that pregnant hag, except made sexual. And then he gets hit on by a bunch of misogynists and literally fucking rips them in half. The most misogynistic man in the universe is like, no, fuck you. You gonna hit on me? Die. And then empties an entire bar by just going, hey guys, I'm horny. And they all run for it.
I think there's an episode of Tacoma FD where one of the sergeants dates a girl who's like an arm model, but she only has one buff arm.
Yeah.
And there's they joke about the hand job is that's gonna come from that arm, but he's interested.
Yep. Yeah. Somebody finds that attractive. So clearly, pretty obvious of the sexuality, the bodily interest, the whole carnival deconstruction, and it's clearly making fun of like misogyny and superheroes and their bad tendencies. But what gets me is kind of the this idea of like he's hyper masculine and hyper toxic. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. The play, the spirit of play with it. So in one issue, Santa he fights Santa.
Oh yes, I do.
And he kills Santa in a machete fight because he's Mr. Machete. It was Santa's idea to go to machetes because Santa's old school like that. And turns out Santa's a brutal dictator who runs like a sweatshop / military compound run by elves. So it's making fun of goodness and virtue, and then playing with that. But as it turns out, that's a fictional story that Lobo had made so that he could profit from it. Like he was just selling the rights to himself for a marketing thing. Except that he picks up a squad of killer penguins from the North Pole in that one, and then they show up in all the other comics. So it's canonicity. It's how real is it when Lobo punches out Poseidon? Like he pops Poseidon's eye. Should Wonder Woman be looking for an eye patch next time? So there's this question of, okay, how real is this? Obviously in comic terms, because
at one point doesn't he fight his own the editor who publishes Lobo? Like he fought his own creator at one point.
Not in the big collection I've read, but that is a definite Lobo thing.
I want to say I saw a video about that.
Yeah, I would not be at all surprised. So it's got this, in comics, there's clearly a level of canonicity. There's things that are non-canon. There's things, this is an Elseworlds or a What If. It's some universe far off where we're just seeing this one story. But with Lobo, it's all happening in the mainstream universe. None of it is alternate universe stuff. It's all affects the story, but it's also clearly not real in canon ways. So it's this weird mixture of, how much of the Lobo story is actually happening to the DC universe and how much is just the main man wanted to get rich off of selling some comics.
Interesting.
So to me, that's a thing that you don't get in other examples of Carnival. You don't get to create the canon. You don't get to create reality or pick and choose what is or isn't real. Because in one of the issues, he goes and it was the early 90s. He gets a copy of The Death of Superman, the comic book, and it's his favorite because he thinks it's hilarious, and then he accidentally rips it. So he goes to Earth to San Diego Comic-Con to get a new volume. Like goes to a comic shop and like, no, I don't want this copy. I want the one with the black bag and the fucking armband, you dweeb. Like, sir, we're sold out of those. Those were limited edition. You'll have to go to Comic-Con to get one. Fine. Rips the guy apart and goes to Comic-Con.
Rips the guy apart.
Yeah. So again, like, it's Lobo making fun of comics. So there's a level of non-reality to it. He's reading a comic book, but there's also, like, this is a Lobo thing. Lobo would go for a comic book about Superman dying because that's funny to Lobo. So yeah, there's this really cool aspect of play to it, which I think is really neat and is something that I would say that, you know, Bakhtin's half right that a lot of things don't have that creative spirit anymore, but this one really kind of does.
It reminds me of the Black Library with Warhammer, that they have intentionally contradictory storylines of the same events told by different perspectives. And the whole thing of having the canon Black Library be in universe means that, like, you kind of do also get to choose which of these narratives you believe is the real one. And people do and argue with each other about it the whole time, especially with the Primarchs and stuff. But it just reminds me of that, where they've created intentional contradictions and like intentional rabbit holes and stuff in such a way that, like, you can't really decide which one is true. And there are certain things that they all agree on, but...
And even then, if they all agree, that could just be every Imperial source agrees on this because they're all idiots and all believe the same lies.
Or just all Imperial and working off of the same interpretations of things.
Yeah. So there's... And I will say I hadn't thought of 40K like that, but I'll have to mention that at the talk. Like, there are other things that do this play with canonicity, because Bakhtin was wrong. But so I think that's really cool. Another thing I wanted to mention, there's so much fun with Lobo. For anybody who's listening, a couple months ago they came out with the Big Fraggin' Compendium 1, which is like a 1,000-page selection of all the Lobo miniseries for the first 4 years. One of them is called Infanticide, and it has his 200-plus bastard children forming an army to murder him, because they are all tired of the stigma of being Lobo's child. One of them is the universe's best prostitute, because everybody wants to, she gets so many clients because they all kind of dream of just, fucking Lobo. Not in a sexual way, but, getting one back at him. And so they could do it with his daughter, so why not? But my favorite, when he's hunting this prostitute daughter that he does not know is his daughter, he gets sent. He works for bounty hunter. Gets sent on a lead to a planetary ruler's harem, which, as it turns out, is 12,000 women strong. And he goes up. It's an entire city. This one is called Blazing Chain of Love, and it's full of just sexual stuff. Spread out before him, stretching away into the hazy distance, was a veritable sea of love pavilions. Dynamic, thrusting, their stately purple towers rose proudly to the sky, reminding him of something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Well, not in public anyway. So every one of the harem members has their own palace, and the king has been impotent for the last 3 years. So Lobo gets basically, as he's walking by searching for this woman, the first concubine he sees is like, "Hey, sailor." And, what the hell? And, goes and then, is walking away a little later and gets jumped by another one. 214 what the hells later. He's on a damn walker, like a Zimmerman. Jesus, even I don't have this much. And then there's another 11,000 of them waiting. So they all attack, shouting, "Me first! I got him! We got him! No, me!" And shit, even I can't take this much. Even the main man's got his limits. So he pulls out his gun and starts blasting away with tranq darts. So you get these beautiful, just great illustrations of machismo, of Lobo standing there, guns blazing, two giant, arm-sized cannons blasting away as half-naked, scantily clad women, fall literally all over him.
Set to stun.
And as... Here we go. But still they came at him, hot, moist flesh pressing in from all sides. They were love-starved babes in heat, and his horse had long since bolted. A lesser being would have crumbled, wilted in the face of the passion attack, laying down and surrendered to their overpowering desires. But Lobo never blinked, never faltered. He just pointed his gun and shot and shot and shot. Here's a picture. I'll make sure to put up the picture of, the sexiness. And in the next page, and just in case you lecherous creeps were getting off of this, definition of misogynist. Misogyny,
Awesome.
misogynism. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So it's taking the piss, obviously. It's overly sexual, but it's also taking the piss out of everyone. Like, hey, you're getting off on this? Fuck you. And my absolute favorite part, that whole, pro-social, making fun of the superhero, but also being the superhero and the anti-hero. After all of this, and he then, the trank darts only last for 24 hours, and he's got to search his way through 12,000 women, so good luck. After all this, after it ends, there's a final page. And now a word from our Bastich. What do you mean, high risk? I was protected, right? I'm always protected. I carry him right next to my favorite gun. Only dicks don't use condoms. Because this was the early 90s, the middle of the AIDS epidemic. It was like, yeah, I am toxic masculinity. Even I wear a condom. So I love this spirit of play, of simultaneously dragging things down and lifting them up, of being creative and destructive, of being hyper misogynist and toxically masculine, and also calling bullshit on all of that. But as with parody, as I said,
it's like the parody where the character is aware himself that he's a parody.
Yeah.
That and I think that's one of the cooler things about Lobo, and it's interesting with characters who have some fourth wall breaking and don't stay within a narrative box.
Yeah.
Is that they can do that kind of thing. You can create a different dynamic where he understands that he's basically a jester character.
Yeah.
He's there to make you uncomfortable. He's there to challenge the status quo. He's there to do all of that stuff, but he knows it. And I think that's one of the things of I think there is at some point somewhere one of the universes Lobo kills the entire DC universe. So he could be a universe ending calamity, and the main reason he's not is because that's not the point of him.
Yeah.
And he knows it.
Yep. And I like that he knows that. And there's also, I like that you get all this toxicity and this hyper machismo, and then occasionally they'll slip something in of again, use a condom. Or my favorite part, he loves space dolphins. He just absolutely adores them, thinks they're the nicest things ever. They are everything pure and good and innocent about the universe, and I am everything that's not. So I'm going to protect it. So God help anybody who touches a space dolphin. So yeah, complete murderous monster, loves dolphins, always a man of his word. If he says he's going to do a thing, he's going to do the thing. Even if that thing is ripping you limb from limb, he's going to do it. So yeah, he's an interesting character, and I think there's a lot more going on to him. That's a lot of fun, and he's so much more than just the toxic biker idiot that he often. Well, he doesn't appear to be an idiot, but kind of the machismo joke that he appears to be. I will also say that there were several incarnations of Lobo that don't get this. So I mentioned there's the first version of him, the first issue he was in, he was just a minor character, wasn't even a biker. He was just a white-skinned assassin with a black mustache. And they were like, yeah, that's kind of interesting, but mostly boring. So they rewrote him for the 90s, and that's when he became the space biker and was awesome. And then in the 2010s, they made him metrosexual. No, the real Lobo who killed all the Zarnians was suave and fancy and not full of muscles and macho. And this guy just took all the credit. And then they never resolved that. They just showed the real Lobo holding the fake one's head sometime later. Yeah, we're going to ignore that, pretend it didn't happen. This guy's awesome. And he will fuck you up if you say otherwise. Anyone mentions the other Lobo dies screaming. So yeah, there's
Sucks to be you then.
yeah.
So is there like a main storyline or something to Lobo, or is it just a bunch of like chaotic stories kind of like put together?
So he had a mini series he had a series of his own at multiple points. Mostly, they don't do very well. He's not like, say, a Batman or a Spider-Man that's going to have like 5 different series, but he's a popular enough character that he gets a lot of mini series of like, we can't do a monthly Lobo title for the next 5 years, but we can do a 4 comic run.
Well, no cameo him for
Yeah,
other stuff.
and he shows up as a
he shows
secondary
up
character.
in most of the Justice League. At some point, you're going to have to deal with Lobo, fight Lobo, unlikely team up with Lobo.
Yeah.
Like
For a while, he was part of Young Justice.
Yeah, he showed up in Young Justice for a while.
He got something happened to where he was made a kid, and so he was Kidbo, and just hung around with them and like, you are a womanizing psychopathic murderer. You're just in the body of a 12-year-old. Like, yeah, so it's cool, right? No,
it's worse.
So yeah, so he shows up in a lot of things and he's kind of a B-list character that is more fun as a guest star. He also there are several issues of the Demon, Etrigan, where he shows up and they're kind of best friends and kind of best enemies. They're like, I love you, you're awesome, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you now. Just cuz.
I partially love you because I can beat the shit out of
Yeah,
you.
like it's an enemy who can punch him and he can punch for eternity, and they'll both keep going. And unlike Superman, Etrigan doesn't try to moralize at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're
So he's got no real like goals or anything other than just to go around and have fun.
yeah, basically, he's a bounty hunter. He used to be a hitman, and then somehow got beaten by like a cop type character through trickery. And he can never figure, like, he's like, if I figure out how you tricked me and pulled that shit off, I will fucking kill you. But because the guy beat him and made him swear an oath, like, alright, I won't kill people for money. I will only hunt them down for money and let other people kill them. So, yeah. So again, always keeps his word, even if he knows he's been suckered.
Well, and in the sense, like we were saying, like, he doesn't have an objective like a quest.
Yeah.
But he does know what literary role he fills, and so he's like always ready for that.
Yeah.
And like being that, like he knows that being himself is his purpose, and so he does it, which again is like a weirdly positive message for Lobo.
Yeah.
Like, where he's like, yeah, no, your job is to be exactly what the fuck you are. I'm a fucking nightmare. That's what I do. Hello.
Yeah.
Like, complete self-acceptance.
Be yourself as hard as possible.
As hard as you possibly can. Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's a lot of fun, and I would highly recommend if anybody's, got the money lying around, get a copy of the Big Dragon Compendium, because it's a lot of fun, a lot of cool stories. They do have some of Lobo's first like solo issues.
Yeah, I definitely always get excited when Lobo shows up in a show or in a comic book.
Oh, yeah.
Like, shit's about to get weird and fun.
Oh, and they also have one where Lobo fights Lobo.
And a little bit terrible.
Because he gets hired to hunt down, an evil villain, and it turns out to be one of his clones from when from shortly before he lost the power. Like, one of them didn't go on the suicide run with all the rest and survived. And there's a big explosion, and one of the Lobos comes out, but nobody knows who. So nobody, even the guys who are like in charge of them, are like, shit, which one lived? And Lobo's not saying.
Well, he is saying, but you have no idea if you can trust him.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So yeah, that's my 2 cents worth and my impromptu presentation. And I'll make sure to have images up so that people can enjoy the nonsense.
Could I get a breakdown of his actual powers?
Sure. So he's
immortal. He's got super strength.
Superman level strength. Durability to the point that like he can regrow himself from a few cells.
And I've definitely seen him gotten like shot with molten metal and like didn't even burn him. He just like broke out of it and kept fighting.
Yeah.
So like even the things that do injure him have to be pretty extreme to injure him at all, and then he can regrow. If you don't completely annihilate him.
Yeah. Like here's the here's that example I was talking about of the them shooting each other, of just like tearing each other apart with bullets, and then they get tired of it and go to knives.
And so he doesn't have like any kind of special weaponry. He's just fucking Lobo.
Yeah. Now he does have like he has favorite weapons. Like he has a really strong hook on a chain that's made from some space metal, so it's extra tough. That he just likes to. Well, frankly, he likes to do the space equivalent of road hauling people, which is not nice. But
well, it is actually nicer in space than it is with like an actual gravel road.
Yeah, but I imagine he takes a detour through asteroid fields. He also has a giant space motorcycle. His space
motorcycle is also amazing, and if you enjoy the like '80s like metal biker aesthetic,
yeah,
it is glorious.
Well, and apparently
it's got bones, it's got fire, it has excessive amounts of chrome. It is a glorious.
Has giant fuck off speakers on the back.
Yeah.
Sometimes, apparently, one of his, I think the artist or the writer, not the guys who created him, but the ones who like revised him in the '90s and made him good. One of them was a biker, and like just borrowed from guys he knew.
That's awesome.
He also, incidentally, has a chip in his head, a transistor, playing a constant stream of death metal. Because again, the '90s. So like he's got murder death metal going in his head 24/7.
That's glorious.
And is just driving him insane. And apparently it's the one, like the pirate radio station from his home planet. He called him up when he was 12 and was like, hey, play this song forever or I'll fucking kill you. And the guy has been because he's so scared. Hadn't left the station. He's just been playing that song on repeat for the last 40 years.
That's amazing.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So again, it was the 90s making fun of, people who are afraid of death metal. He actually gets attacked by a bunch of, moral grandmothers. But they get distracted by a Vegas strip and, have to go blow that up. Different planet, but same basic principle.
Moral grandmother.
Yes, basically the morals squad, who are a bunch of octogenarian grandmothers and grandfathers enforcing their morals at gunpoint against all these dirty-minded people. So yeah, I think that's my 2 cents on Lobo. I think anything else to add, or that about wrap it up?
Lobo's a really fun character. It is, just so that it's clearly said, he is a satirical character.
Yes.
And we, like, as amusing as it is to watch him be misogynistic and terrible and war crimey, none of those things are things we think are good.
Yes, the misogyny and toxic masculinity are bad, and part of the fun of Lobo is that he is very clearly making fun of them.
Yeah.
And while also, like, embodying them and being toxically masculine and misogynist and, the naked, half-naked women draped over him in piles of flesh.
Well, he's funny. He's entertaining. Yeah. He's not a hero that we look up to.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. You don't even the people who look up to Lobo don't look up to Lobo.
Exactly.
There is also a bunch of Lobo fanboys who get blown the fuck up because in the first miniseries, because again, if you were enjoying Lobo, fuck you. Just a little.
If you ever say the sentence, I want to do this because Lobo did it, Lobo would disagree with you.
Yes. All right. Well, I think that is some moral butt covering done.
Okay.
Again, toxic masculinity and misogyny, bad. Stance we're willing to take on this channel.
Yep.
But anything else to add about the main man?
He does also remind me of Randy Macho Man Savage. And
I hadn't seen that, but yes.
In a good way.
Yeah. Like that's... Somebody was watching WWE when they were drawing some Lobo.
Yeah, the handlebar alone.
Yeah. Honestly, if I'm being honest, I'm a little surprised he doesn't have like a dog companion.
He does. He just claims it's not his dog.
He does. Of course,
it's a killer bulldog who also carries a gun.
I think that sounds like something that has to exist. Okay.
I know it's heretical.
Farts a lot.
Of course,
it just shows up and starts hanging out with him. He does, and again, somebody's like, "Hey, there's a problem with your dog." Not my dog. It just hangs out. So yeah, I think that'll probably do us. So on that
Although
note, before we get
I would
go.
enjoy to see. I know it's heretical crossover because it's Marvel DC, but Lobo with Jeff the Land Shark would be just such an incredible duo.
Lobo would probably find him charming and endearing.
Yes, and also the part where he just eats people.
Yeah, that
be
too.
like, "Aw, he's so cute."
All right. So on that note, why don't we end there, and everybody, I guess, take care of yourselves. All right. Bye.